Lebbeus Woods, War and Architecture. Pamphlet Architecture 15, Princeton Architectural Press. New York City, 27th of June, 1993. This pamphlet is dedicated to the citizens of Sarajevo, who at this writing are still under a viscous and pathological siege that began more than 14 months ago. It is my hope that ideas worked out at a distance will nevertheless have immediacy for them, and in some way contribute, when the time comes, to the rebuilding of their city and way of life. The towers are burned now in Sarajevo. The steel and glass monuments to enlightened progress in an age of industrial society are gutted hulks, and with them the ideologies and values they embodied. Sarajevo's skyscrapers were prime targets of gunners in the hills, together with minarets and domed mosques, the great library, the post office, the university buildings, and all others that symbolized reason and its promise of humane civil life. Once set afire by incendiary shells, there was no way to save them. Not only had the infrastructure with which to do so been destroyed, but also the delicate tissue of reasons to do so. The burning towers of Sarajevo are markers at the end of an age of reasons, if not of reason itself, beyond which lies a domain of almost incomprehensible darkness. But war is not confined to this city, nor to the culturally complex Balkan Peninsula, for which Sarajevo was a symbol of tolerance and hope, and is now a signal of despair and a warning. Armed conflict, in one guise or another, rages around the world, in Azerbaijan, Moldova, and Georgia, in Afghanistan, Kashmir, and Sri Lanka, in Israel and Lebanon, in Angola, and half a dozen other African states, in Northern Ireland, Peru, and Colombia. South central Los Angeles was the zone of a civil insurrection that passed through it like a sudden and virulent storm, leaving behind not only massive destruction to property, but also to illusions of America's immunity to the violent forces of change affecting others. In Germany, the firebombing of buildings housing guest workers has led to riots that expose once again the fragility of civilization in even the most orderly societies. Though no one in their right mind would wish it, there is certainly more to come as the human world continues to fragment in the thaw following the Cold War, cracking like a great monolithic ice sheet along new and sometimes unexpected lines. It is a depressing and frightening picture to draw, especially at the end of a century in which hot wars have taught unforgettable lessons about the madness of organized violence. But it is a picture that emerges of its own cruel strength, its disturbing but potentially healing necessity. Only in confronting it can there be any hope of changing its tragic content. Only by facing the insanity of willful destruction can reason begin to believe again in itself. The architecture of knowledge. Is the knowledge of which people base their actions objective, concerning a reality independent of subjective human cognitive processes? Yes, according to principles of classical science, Plato's ideal, Descartes' duality, Newton's mechanics, Einstein's classical causality, This is a reality in which authority resides in hierarchies and in the static equilibriums of rational determinism. Or is knowledge existential? Does it concern a world in which existence precedes essence, in which knowledge cannot be verified by the assumption of a reality external to the processes of human cognition? Yes, according to principles of quantum theory, matrix mechanics, Copenhagen interpretation, and cybernetics, recursive closed systems, this is a reality in which authority moves within the shifting, dynamical fields of the self-determining, self-organizing systems, known as heterarchies, Deleuze's nomads and flows. According to these principles, absolute and relative, objective and subjective have no meaning. Which set of principles is true? As any good, amoral scientist would say, the one that works the best. As any good, moral existentialist would demand, the one confirmed by experience. Architecture is an embodiment of knowledge. The making of architecture is a major coalescing activity in society, bringing together many flows into a single complex stream. In classical terms, architecture is a socially significant synthesis of the old antithesis: public, private, art, science, capital, labor. As long as society is dominated by institutions of authority that require a basis external to themselves for their existence, divine rights of kings, social contract, monumental architecture is required to embody objective knowledge. Subjective knowledge is relevant only within the personal sphere, and is therefore embodied in idiosyncratic private works, tolerated publicly as works of art. However, when society can no longer define itself in classically deterministic objective terms, but only in terms of continuously shifting, fluid dynamical fields of activity, then architecture must forsake the monumental, because there is no hierarchy to valorize, no fixed authority or body of knowledge external to human experience to codify. In such a society, the classical distinction between art and life disappears. Art and life flow together, inseparable. Architecture then concerns itself with fluid dynamic structures, tissues, networks, matrices, heterarchies. Both social structures exist within the present one, the fixed and the fluid, the hierarchical and heterarchical. The one that works, the one confirmed by experience, depends on point of view. For many today, the heterarchical offers the best chance to realize the potential of the human. To a religious fundamentalist, the very opposite is true. One difference exists, however: the 2 points of view are neither equivalent nor interchangeable. The heterarchical of necessity embraces the hierarchical, but the hierarchical cannot of necessity embrace the heterarchical, and will suppress it by any means, including intentional violence and war.